Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio. My name is Natifa and I'm going to walk you all through how I made this video. So for this one, I am using some watercolor paper and my envelope punch board. Now this punch board is made by We Are Memory Keepers and I love it. It's really compact and it has all the measurements, so I'm using an A6 size and I'm just going through and just punching stuff out. I am also using a little bit of some scissors to cut out a portion that I didn't cut out so perfectly using the punch board, but that's all I'm doing there. I would typically go back in there and just crease my envelopes to kind of just give it some shape. And then I jump into start, figuring what color I wanted to use. So I'm currently doing a frayed burlap challenge with oxide inks. And so I decided to pair this with crushed olive and oxide inks. And so that's what I'm using here. So I just poured some on some, I think that's a paper plate, and I'm just gonna start painting my stripes for this one. So, honestly, I think this challenge has been really fun for me to do. I love to combine colors that you wouldn't necessarily think would go together, or a little bit scary to go together, but I just like to try all the things. I like to create backgrounds that are just really unique and fun. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just sort of, painting some stripes, letting the colors kind of run into each other, because I just love how frayed burlap dries. It dries into this really cool, like bluish green, small turquoise-ish type thing. It's really, really unique. And I just think it's a lot of fun. So I just wanted to, just try with this color and see how it goes. For my challenges, I typically just pick one color and I just sort of see what I can use it with for the next week or the following week after I select that color, and I just use it on the envelopes. I may paint the entire envelope with that color. I may combine it with other colors, but all you see me doing here is just combining this frayed burlap with crushed olive, and I'm just sort of just having a lot of fun with it. So you can watch me kind of finish this one up a little bit. Once I'm done with my with painting the envelope, I will use my heat gun to dry it all out. I think when you dry oxide inks by, with just air drying them, they just really create these beautiful colors. But because for time's sake and because I'm a little bit impatient sometimes with these, I tend to use my heat gun a lot. And you get some really cool effects too, but I do think there's a difference between letting the oxide inks dry on their own, just air drying them, versus using your heat gun. So when I'm drying this, I tend to kind of just move around. I lift up my paper just to make sure I'm getting underneath and getting some heat underneath there so that the heat goes through the paper a little bit. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm still kind of trying to cut out, the edges to make sure they fold appropriately. And then I kind of go back in there and try to figure out which flap I want to be on the top, the folding flap, versus on the bottom, the one that's secure. So that's what you guys saw me doing there. So then I start to figure out what I want to put on this envelope, if I want to do, some stamps or whatever. But for me, once I paint it, you can definitely leave it like that, but I like to go back in there and add some additional grunge and just some different textures and stamps and etc. to my backgrounds, because I think that they create a really cool effect. So I'm using, I think, candied apple here, and I'm using a stamp set that has it's kind of like dots a little bit, and I thought the candied apple oxide would look really, really cool against that crushed olive and burlap or frayed burlap. And so you can see there, it just pops off the paper. I always encourage people to use a color wheel if they're kind of unsure about what colors to use together For me, I tend to kind of just know how the color wheel works in my head. And so sometimes if I'm not stuck, if I'm stuck, I'm going to pull out my color wheel. But if I'm not stuck, I will kind of base it off like, okay, this is green, so red's going to look really cool against it, you know, or this is blue, so whatever, it's going to look, orange is going to look really cool against it. And that's kind of what I do there. So that is Wild Honey. And I just wanted to see if it was going to give me some effect, and that's what I'm doing there with it. I'm still looking for some colors to add on there, and I think I decided to use some seedless preserves on here. And so I was going to just use the seedless preserve, but I wanted to go back in here and add some more red, it looks like, because I just felt like I didn't have enough. So candy apple is what it is. So I also pulled out some stencils. You know, I use a lot of stencils in my work because I just love them. I think they're gorgeous. And you'll see me use that there in a little bit. But I found this damask stamp that I have, and I wanted to use this to create some more texture on the background of my envelope. And so I use seedless preserve, and I'm just sort of dabbing around. You see, I'm not even using an acrylic block for this one. I'm just sort of dabbing it around and just sort of going to town. I think it creates a less perfect look, which I love. I don't want it to be like a full image of the damask image or motif there. And so I really like that. So I would encourage you, don't try to make it perfect all the time. If you can, you know, leave off some of the stamp image without having ink on it on the background, it just creates a kind of organic look, I think. So for me, so I also went back in there and I'm using a stencil. I tend to just spray the backs of the stencil and just kind of stamp them like that with my hand, wipe them, add some more, and just sort of stamp around. I find that it creates a really cool effect. And I always go back in and blot it because I really want to just create a stain, right? The oxide sprays and the oxide or the stains, they're supposed to stain things, I feel like. And so I really want to create a stain effect. And so I tend to just sort of like try to wipe it up, or, you know, mop it up so it doesn't create a dark image. It's sort of just like a stain. Now I found this, or I have this embossing folder. It's a Jabura, is it Jabura or Gabera? Whatever the daisy's called. And it's like a 3D and cutout at the same time. And so I wanted to try and test it out. I've just got into Sizzix die cuts recently, like in the last couple of months or so. And I think they're really cool. So I'm sure a lot of you guys already have these and you use them all the time. So that's what I did there. I wanted to use that color as a blueprint sketch. You'll see that I always try to mop up my extra paints or inks with a tag, because I can use those tags for my Happy Meal and create backgrounds on those. So I don't like to waste my inks because they're just delicious. Why would I want to waste them? And so I always try to mop it up. So I splattered some I think that was mustard seed oxide ink on there, and then I'm going to start trying to place my images. You guys will see, if you follow me on Instagram, you will see that I'm using the stamped edge images that I showed you guys how to do on this envelope. I thought they'd be really cool to use. I love that specimen one. It's really fun to make, and I'm just sort of placing to see where I want to put things on here. So that's what you guys see me doing here. I also like to go back in and use my gel pen a lot. You guys will see me use my neon gel pens a lot in my work. I just love the look of it. I think it's like a vintage fiesta is what I always call my stuff, vintage fiesta. Just a little bit of color and brightness to a vintage type style. So I'm using some scrapbooking paper here that I already have, and I am just gluing that little tape measurer. Is it tape measure? What is that thing called? Tape? Measuring tape? Measuring tape. And then I'm just sort of going to start gluing stuff down on there. I typically will make a mark where I'm going to glue things, because who remembers where they put stuff down? You know, you always put your pieces together, then you always forget. I'll either do that or I'll take a picture of it so I can remember where I put stuff at. I don't typically have an idea of what I'm going to do when I make these envelopes. I just sort of play and go along and just sort of see what develops. So for me, I think taking photos along the way is the best thing that I can do to kind of like remember where I put things. So I went back in there with my gel pen and I'm just sort of adding some details to that flower, because I think it's just gonna make the emboss indentions kind of rise a little bit, and so I wanted to highlight those, and so I'm using a gel pen to do that. My tape that I'm using is a Tombow tape runner, and I love it. It's super sticky, and I don't typically, I like it because it's super sticky and it's supposed to be permanent, but I have found that if I need to move things around, it'll move. So I love it because in the end, it can be really permanent, but if I need to, like I said, move things around, I can still move them around if they're not in the right place. And so that's what I'm using there. And I just got that off of Amazon. I really love these paper dolls. I like to use some washable markers to what I call dressing them. And that's where you just go back in there and you use them to kind of color their outfits. So when you're using, I did a tutorial on this on Instagram, but when you're using the markers, you just sort of like kind of drenching it in the paper doll in color, and then you're using a paper towel to kind of mop up the extra and kind of, you know, moving that extra color, but the color always like stains the piece or the doll, so I just think it creates a really cool effect. So you can use all your bright colors and just add some life, I think, to the paper dolls. Since a lot of times their clothes are dark, you can still add color to those and do some other fun things with them. So I'm using that, and as you guys can see me mopping up that extra. That's what I'm doing there. I typically will use like a pink on their cheeks and mop it up really quickly and kind of try to smudge it. It just gives some life to their cheeks, if you ask me. And then I like to go back in and just sort of distress the edges of those. I distress everything, like the edges, everything. But the funny thing about it is that I only use like black suit. I don't ever use any other colors. Like, it's rare that I use another color, and I have like a lot of them, so it's kind of funny. So when I'm dressing paper dolls, I like to use my gel pens again and to just go through the creases of the outfit. For me, it just adds an extra layer or dimension to the outfit and the paper dolls, and it just looks unique. It looks really cool to me. So that's how I like to dress mine, and just sort of go back in there. So you guys see me kind of going back in, and I'm finding the creases again of the outfit, and that's where I'm kind of drawing my lines. I'm not going really like hardcore on the lines. They're kind of light and just sort of like just showing where the creases are in the outfit. So to create some light. I also like to use the gel pens to, you know, dress them up with like their jewelry. So if they're wearing an earring, even if they're not wearing earrings, I can add earrings with gel pens, and it just makes them look like they're fancy, or bracelets, or oh, excuse my hair there, or bracelets and etc. To them. But I think it's a lot of fun to use those. And so you should give it a try and see if you like it. So I wanted to create a halo for this young lady, and so I pulled out some gemstones that I just have laying around. These are like the super cheapy ones. Well, this one was like, I think almost like $20, but I think I got it on sale at Hobby Lobby. But I had some really small ones from when I was making when I used to make jewelry a lot, and so those are I think a whole lot better because they're super sparkly for a halo, and I just sort of glued them around her head onto that flower there, and so that's what I'm doing there. So now you guys see me kind of go back in on that outfit. I think I used a souffle gel pen, and it was just too light. As you guys remember me saying that I like to have the lines kind of soft, and the souffle gel pens they create a really hard line for like on your paper doll. So just be really careful. And so I was kind of scratching them off because I just didn't like the look of it. And so that's the cool thing about it, is that you can go back in there and kind of scratch things off if you want to. The paper dolls are very forgiving to work with. Honestly, you can use some water and just lift up a lot more of those markers if you want to. So don't be afraid to get in there and just try and see what you create. or you can find a paper doll you don't really care for and just practice on that one, and then that would be great. So I love to fill space on my envelopes, and I just got the stencil and I wanted to use it. And I was trying to use black suit here with a sponge to put some florals, but I thought, maybe it'd be really cool to use some texture paste. And I learned this technique from Tim Holtz on one of his demos, where he used the texture paste first and then he poured embossing powder over it. And then you let it dry completely, and then use your heat gun to emboss it, and it just creates this really cool effect, and I think it's super awesome. So I wanted to try it, and so I used my palette knife. Honestly, I would recommend a plastic palette knife. I have metal ones for when I painted, and I really and truly think the plastic one is the best because it's flexible, right? So you guys see me using some embossing powder there on that, and I'm just sort of flicking them off onto my transparency, putting them back into the jar because I need to do another one on the other side of the envelope. This is how I wash my stencils in between doing work. I just use my mister or vaporizer, and I just spray water on it, and I use a paper towel and my finger to kind of scrub it and get the texture paste off of it, and then I just sort of go to town on the other side. I don't wash the whole entire thing because I don't want to get up usually. I'm too lazy, and so that works for me, and it gets things out of there. I may use a brush sometimes to scrub it a little bit because the brush bristles are not too intense, and so that works for me too. So I am going to let this thing dry for a while. I'm not going anywhere, but I would recommend I let this dry overnight, because if you go back in there, it's going to bubble up. Trust me from experience. And Tim told us don't do it because it's going to bubble up, and I did, and it bubbled up on another envelope that I did. So let it dry overnight, or give it a few hours to really dry, and etc., and kind of go from there. So while it's starting to dry, I went back in and found this label, or this phrase. It says frequently in irreverent, and I think it was just super cute with the girl who looks like she was like a schoolgirl, but just kind of like hiding a little secret. I thought it was super cute, and so that's what I chose for this one. So I'm just gonna go back in here and start stamping some images, just to fill some space, and just sort of start trying to put this envelope together. So that's what you guys see me doing here. So I initially wanted to add some staples to this envelope because I thought it would be so cute on that little ledge that she's sitting on, but my stapler would not fit over the flap there, and so I was like, dang, I wish I had like I wish it had a longer throat, where you could kind of like get into the middle of a piece of paper or something. I really wish the stapler, and it happens a lot with staples or staplers, I'm like, just make the throat longer for some reason. I don't know, but I think it would be really cute if there were staples on there, but I didn't have an opportunity to. So I guess I could have pulled out my long like my stapler that has like a longer throat, but that one has bigger staples in it, so I couldn't even for real like use it. So there's that. So I'm going back through here with my Stabilo pencil. I love using a Stabilo pencil in black to kind of provide some shading to my piece. I love it because it's water soluble, and it just creates a really cool, I think, shadow type deal for that. Now this is the next day. I let this dry overnight, so I'm going back in here and I am using my embossing gun or my heat gun to emboss my my embossing powder on this texture paste. And when I did it, it was very glossy, and which was fine. And so I also learned this technique from Tim to kind of create some shadowing on by using your distressed crayons and the distressed brush there. And I'm like, I'm gonna try it. So I jump in there and I'm starting to like, do whatever. And I discovered that when you use the crayons on top of the black embossing powder, it turns it from glossy to matte. And it's such a really beautiful matte that I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful and I was really excited about it. So I'm still kind of in awe by that. So I'm going back in here again using my little sponge to really try to get a little bit more shadowing going on. I really wanted that to look like it was not just flat against the surface. So I'm going back in there with my Stabilo pencil, making sure that all the edges are smudged. It just creates a really cool smudge effect, I think. And so there's that. All right, so I'm using a little corner, I don't know what you call that thing, but it makes the corners of your envelopes rounded. So just, I don't know, maybe is it a paper rounder, edge rounder? I don't know. But I went back in here and I think I'm using some crushed olive, or maybe that's twisted citron. I think that looks like twisted citron, and I'm using that just to add some color to the inside of the envelope. I want when people receive these and when they open them, they're like, ooh, that's the sound I want them to make, was a ooh, because the color inside is so beautiful and vibrant. And so I love to paint the insides of my envelope. I think they're just gorgeous. So there's that. All right, so I'm starting to get to the end of this and trying to figure out what else needs to happen. So I need to work on my flap. I like to keep the flap decorated also. It just creates a cohesive look to me when I create these. So I decided I was going to use black soot. I don't know why I didn't use black soot on the other side, on the back of the envelope, because this could have worked too. But I'm like, I didn't have time to kind of use the distress pasting, and so I said, let me just try the black soot oxide inks and kind of use my stencil here again, and it totally worked. It's great. It's the same color. The only thing I will say is that I can't go back in here and just create a shadow for those florals, so I kind of got what I got there and I was okay with it. So I'm distressing my edges again, just to make it look a little bit more vintagey and just beautiful, because everything distressed is gorgeous, as we all know. I'm sure you guys agree with me. I do the entire thing. I have to not be really crazy because I can get a little carried away with it. And so there's that. So I'm trying to do some cleanup here with some water on that brush, just to make sure things are not kind of running rampant, but they're smudged beautifully and kind of whatever. So I'm going back in here with my gel pen again. This one is in like a neon yellow, and just adding some more color to that. Distressing the edges of this, I'm going to use my stencil to just add some more florals on the front of this envelope, because I just really love the way it looks on this one with those colors in the background. That black just really pops off of the envelope, and it's just really pretty. See, it's just really pretty. And so I really wanted to go back in here and do that. So that's what I'm doing. There you go. So I just wanted to just smudge it a little bit with the oxide on that brush. And then I'm going to use some glue. I use the Ultimate Glue. I get this from Hobby Lobby. It is like my favorite glue ever. Hands down, it's really is my favorite tacky glue ever. It's really tacky. It never fails me. If you use this glue, just make sure that it's something you don't want to take apart again, because it's going to glue it together and it's going to stay glued together. So I'm sort of pushing it down and kind of getting it ready for that. So here's the final piece, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.